Hello. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today because I've got a really important message that I've got to give America, and it's going to be it's going to be a big effort here because science has discovered incredibly important new evidence, not me, major universities, doctors, neurosurgeons, neurologists have discovered new evidence which is basically supposed to put high school football and high school hockey out of business. The reason why is because all of the children who are being damaged, destroyed, and suffered lifetimes of pain and eventually killed from a sport that's essentially murder. Now, God forbid if you shoot someone and it takes them 30 years to die, that's still murder. And what's happening with all these heavy contact sports is they're damaging the brain in ways that people knew existed but couldn't prove scientifically. But recently, great universities like Boston University, the VA, the Concussion Legacy Syndrome Group, they've been using a lot of great doctors and great scientists to study the brain of people who died. And they discovered that even the high school football players have gotten their brain damaged from football, and they have lesions in the brain, which means that things happen differently the rest of their lives, because if you damage your brain, you may not be able to recover from it. This is absolutely horrible, way beyond what anybody thinks. When you go to college or when you go to high school, you're going there to get smarter, not dumber. And brain damage hasn't made anybody smarter that I can think of. What happens is these young people get hit in the head. Now, I even know the mothers. What made me do this is because I'm trying to gather more evidence. But the mothers, I know mothers who don't want their sons to play football, but the kids are so stubborn about it and so locked into it that they threaten to leave home, that they just say, I'm playing. And mothers, of course, are very scared of their children just rebelling away from the family and from school, so they often acquiesce. They often sign the papers. But they know in their hearts that they're sending their 14-year-old boy in to get hit by 3, 4, 18-year-old men at the same time. And they hit him in the head, and they hit him hard. Besides the broken bones and the collarbones and the necks and the joints that are ruined, they also destroy their brains. And gee, does that surprise you? When a big guy hits a little guy? It shouldn't, because it's common sense. Now, of course, we can all talk about Muhammad Ali, who we'll talk about later, probably. But Muhammad was the greatest fighter just about anybody ever saw. He was like a Superman with his physical skills, his speed, his timing, his power, his size. And sure enough, he boxed, and not only did he get brain damage that killed him and made him live 30 years like a terribly cursed person with terrible damage. Everybody knows that, and I might edit in a picture of what he looked like towards the end. And he, not only that, he also killed his friends. He would go out there and box with guys like Joe Louis, who was his friend, and other people, and he damaged their brains too. And that's not what America's about. That's the Roman Empire that we left 1,000, 2,000 years ago. That's other countries, but now America is getting even worse with MMA and UFC, and this is terrible, and football. So hockey, can you imagine what it's like to get slammed into the wall in hockey, or get hit in the head by those sticks? Now, I know you're not supposed to hit somebody in the head with a stick, but how do you go through 4 years of high school hockey without getting hit in the head by a stick? That's against the law, in my humble opinion, and it's a terrible thing. Now, how can a mother go there and watch her 14-year-old boy get hit in the head with a stick by accident or otherwise when she knows he should be at home studying or practicing a craft? How can she do that? Most mothers hate that. They hate it. They hate it. They hate watching their little boy, who they put 14 years of love into, getting his brains knocked around and getting lesions inside the brain and brain bleeds. They hate it, but they're afraid to say no. And then they have to go to the doctors many times to get a note that it's okay for the little child to play football or hockey or even lacrosse. And the doctors, they don't want to sign those notes. They know they're doing the wrong thing for those children. They know 100% that that child's going in for a real bad situation. But because they have these weasel words in the consent form, the doctors sign them because they don't want to piss off the world and the community and the dreams of scholarship and pro football. They don't want to do that, so they sign them. And I think those doctors are complicit too, and I think the state is complicit because they give them forms that are full of weasel words. The form should say, just like this. I know I've been a lawyer forever, but let me tell you, the form should say just like this. I, Dr. So-and-so, would let my son play football, which they won't do, my son ain't playing football, would let my son play football, and I guarantee that this boy will not go in and get brain damage from playing football. And no doctor would sign that, and if the doctor did sign it, they'd pull his license right away. That's the test that the doctor's supposed to sign. They're supposed to make people healthier, not unhealthier. This is a really serious issue because when these young fellas get hurt, not only do they spend a lifetime on medication, often self-medicating by buying street drugs, but they also drink too much because their brains are in pain. They also take out their aggression on other people because they're in pain and they can't think straight. They kill their children, their families, their best friends. And these numbers are scary that's happening. Worldwide Wrestling is another disaster. Worldwide Entertainment, they call it. Those people just sued over the fact that they were lied to about brain damage that they were getting. Now, you and me talking now, we both know that people who go in there and get slammed on their head are going to have headaches for a long, long time until they die. We know it, they know it, but the people are so busy making the unholy dollar that America has turned into that kind of shit show. Now, how many kids are in this? We're not talking about 2 kids in your hometown. We're not talking about some little school somewhere. We're talking about nationwide. Do you think it's 1 million kids getting brain damage in our high schools? Now, you got to say, is this what made America go wrong? Is this what made America so violent? Could be, because those are the strong kids in school. Those are the strongest kids in their class who go out there to fight over a football. And they're doing what? A mother has to watch her son go out there and get hit by 5, 10 guys, 20 guys in 2 hours, right, in the head, to move a little dead piece of pig. It's a tiny little dead piece of pig, to move it down to some stupid goalposts along some grass. That's not common sense. That's antisocial, and it's stupid, and that's what costs America a lot of crime and a lot of pain in the head and a lot of crime that goes through, and we can't take it anymore. You know why we can't take it anymore? Because we don't have to, because it's stupid. And yet I guarantee you, with all the efforts that I do, and with all the efforts that the other lawyers and people do, they're not going to be able to stop this violence because it's a culture that's hung up on violence and sacrificing these young minds to our blood sport, to our desire to see people suffer. Now, long time ago, they used to have a ritual where they would take a young girl, a virgin, all right? She had to be a virgin. They would take a young virgin, and they'd do a ceremony, and at the end of the ceremony, they would throw her into a volcano. Do you know that's the way it used to be? Now tell me that's not something wrong. They'd throw a young girl into a volcano. She hasn't even lived yet, right? And the fact that we stopped doing that makes us think that we've done something better. Now, we talked about wars like Vietnam and Iraq, and we all knew there was something wrong with a bunch of old guys, you know, like Nixon and Johnson and George Bush, sending young people off to die in countries that never did anything to us. Gee, do you think there's something wrong with that? Of course, everything's wrong with that. And it's time for us to take this stupidest example of all, which is football and hockey and those violent sports that have been going on now for 60 years in America. It's time to take those sports and throw them out. Throw them out. Now, you know what I discovered? That this is a war between the nerds, the scientists, the doctors, some lawyers like me who are basically nerds, and the thugs. The football coaches, the fathers who want their kids to be tough, the fathers who want their kids to get brain damaged because they know they're sending their kid to get brain damaged. They know it, you know it, the doctors know it, the scientists know it, the coaches know it. And you know, I don't even think it's legal for a coach, an adult male, to send a young man in to hit another man. These are minors. I don't know where they get the legal consent. I think that the right judge, if we got some judges who really cared, would say this is not legal. You cannot ruin a 14-year-old boy's brain because you happen to care about a piece of pigskin moving to nowhere. To nowhere. It's so stupid. You could die crying or you could die laughing, and that's where they come with the word tragicomic. It's unbelievably tragicomic, and we have to try to stop it. And the first ones who can stop it are the young boys who say no, but it's very hard for them to do that because they're young and untested. And their mothers. Their mothers have to just step up and say, I'm not signing the goddamn paper. I'm not doing it. I'm not sending my son, and I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you if you try to send my kid into an arena to get his brains damaged for the next 70 years. Because that aggression he's going to take is going to come out on his family, on his sisters, on his wife, everybody. And you know, what got me off on this tangent were a few things. One was, like I said, a client asked me to do something about the school trying to force the son to play, trying to hustle him. And the other one was another one of my friends died from football. One of the local guys who made it good, very successful football player, made the pros. Anyway, he died this year. And I was really sad because he had suffered so hard and his family had suffered with him for so many years. And of course, Muhammad Ali, who I saw in that horrible state for all these years, one of the greatest, most flamboyant people, peacemaker, but here he was killing people and getting killed. And people were paying thousands of dollars and dressing up like imitation sheep to go there and be glamorous and wear stupid rocks from Angola and other places, that shined up rocks from Belgium, and say, look at me, I'm watching him kill another guy. Now, just because the guy didn't die in the ring, or he died 20, 30, 40 years later, couldn't chew food for the last 20 years of his life, couldn't go outside and talk to anybody and remember what street he lived on, just because of that, he had to suffer like that. Somebody should have stopped that when he was a young man. There shouldn't have been a place where he could go in and get his brain destroyed. Not for a couple of stinking bucks, not for fame and glory. You don't kill your friend to become famous, and that's what boxing is. That's what MMA is. But the thing I'm dealing with today is I'm looking for evidence for high school kids, people who don't want their kids to play football, but they're getting seduced into it. You don't do that. You don't let a boy go in and get seduced and get a disease, and you certainly don't let a little boy go in and get his brains damaged and die from it, because that's not a good parent. And every mother in the country knows that when she's watching her boy run into the next Bubba Smith or Mean Joe Green and watching him get his head literally torn off, you know you're not being a good mother because you don't got the guts to step up. Anyway, I don't know. That's really strong stuff. But let me tell you, this is a very serious issue, and we've got to get going. Here's what the latest studies show: over 90% of NFL players have brain damage from football. Over 90%. That's 9 out of 10. I often wonder if Donald Trump, from playing high school football, got brain damage from it, because he acts like he's a little bit punch drunk sometimes. Even Prince. He was on this opium drug, opioids, and here he was, when he was in high school, he played football, but he was only 5'2" tall. 5'2" tall. And he was playing football. He was getting hit by guys who were probably 6'2", 6'3", 180, 200 pounds. If he was 5'2" as a sophomore in high school, he might have been, 110 pounds, 112 pounds? Bang. I mean, that could have affected his brain the rest of his life. Now, the guy had more talent in music, like an incredible presence. But the point is that he had to take these powerful drugs to keep himself straight, and eventually he overdosed on that, and that killed him. How about O.J. Simpson? Boy, could he run a football. But he got hit how many hundreds and thousands of times by guys who were twice his size and twice as tough. And they hit him, and then he had that rage, and he went out and cut the throats, maybe, of Nicole Simpson and the other fella. He killed them after a year of violence, torture, years of violence. Here was a guy who started out a nice guy who turned into a super violent killer, and then later he went to jail with the gun thing. Man, that's not what it's all about. Now you're going to say, what about my opportunity? How am I going to be famous? How am I going to hit the big time? Well, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. But as a society, I know that we have to grow up. And you want to make them grow up, one thing, but not when they're 14, not when they're 15, not when they're 16, not when they're 17. When they're 18, maybe they're adults. You can argue that separately. But you can't argue that you can send a high school kid to get stupider and brain damaged instead of get smarter. High school's for learning. Now, before football was around, you could say America was a great country. You could say Donald Trump's going to take us back to being a great country again. I don't know. But after football came around, America, did it get better? Did it make America better? It certainly didn't win World War II. Is football what's making us win wars now? Show me where. Show me how. Show me where it's replacing the robots that they're fighting the wars with and the drones. Our drones don't play football. Our rifles don't play football. We have robots that can go 50 miles an hour and shoot machine guns now. They didn't play football. So what the hell? What the hell is going on? George Washington never played football. Man, I'll tell you, Nat Turner never played football. Thomas Jefferson never played football. He just raped slaves. The slaves never played football. So what is this thing that football has taken over the minds of our country? On Sundays, we all get together and watch people go out and cause brain damage to other American kids. Even veterans, they have PTSD too. But to play football for a 14-year-old kid is different than an 18-year-old kid who's defending freedom and stuff like that. So we've really got some issues here that we've got to work on, and we're ready to work on them. We're very ready to work on them. Now, one of the organizations I mentioned before was the Concussion Legacy Foundation, and you can look them up on Google, and you'll find the great work they're doing to try to stop people from getting brain damage and stuff like that. And also, there's a lot of Harvard doctors and Yale doctors and MIT people who are just trying so hard to prove to Americans that this stuff is poison. It's killing your own people. I mean, between the lead and the football and the hockey, this is killing the best kids in the country. And it's turning them into, unfortunately, what's it turning them into? You see Aaron Hernandez. You see O.J. Simpson. You think they were born to be like that? I don't think that's been proved. I think what's been proved is they've been hit in the head so many times and trained to be violent that they went out and did these things. And Junior Seau, he killed himself from the pain. This isn't what happens. And these deaths are happening all the time. And I mean all the time. Recently, Harry Carson, 6'8" football player, all-pro more times than you can count. The guy had everything. A great football player, champion, world champion, all-pro. All right, he recently said, oh no, my 6-year-old grandson is not playing football, period. His brain isn't coming out like my brain. He's not going to suffer like I suffer. You know why? Because I'm the dictator in my family. I'm the dictator, and my 6-year-old grandson is not playing football because the brain is too important. You can Google it. Harry Carson, he can beat any of you who I'm talking to with one hand. He could knock you out and put you in a toilet. All right, in his day, he was Harry. Okay, he's got the rings to prove it. But the point is that he said, no, no more. And that's the way it's got to be. How can you send little children in to damage each other's brains? Enough, please. Thank you. Grow up, America. We've got to try to do it. Now, our judges, they're ready, willing, and able to start taking on this problem because they're smart people, and they don't want the children. They don't want the children to be brain damaged. Now, they'll let the football thugs come in and bring their doctors and say, no, football's not going to hurt these little boys. Don't worry. It's an all-American sport. It's what will make America crazy again. They're not going to let those crazy scientists argue that. Excuse me. They're not going to let those crazy scientists argue that successfully because they're going to see through the truth. And if I'm wrong, the judges will see it and they'll say, hey, go ahead, you 14-year-old kids. Go get killed. Go get killed. Go get your brain lesions. They might say that. Or they might say, sorry, not in my court. You've got to protect the kids first. Your job is to protect the kids. You're a football coach. I don't understand how you can send a kid out there. I know you need to make a living. I know you have homeowners insurance. Maybe you should put that up on this. But you have to protect these kids, not send them out to get brain damage and get killed. So you ought to read about Harry Carson, what he says about football and how he'll speak to you about it. Now, there used to be a football player named Fridge. Fridge lasted a few years in the NFL. He was like 400-something pounds, 6'2", you know, and they called him the Fridge because he was built like a refrigerator. Anyway, the Fridge now is pretty much living out of his car. He might have a home. He's broke. He sits in his car all day and drinks and eats bad food. He has diabetes. He's falling apart. God knows where he goes to the bathroom. I don't want to talk about that. You know, the guy was so strong, he could go through, my 20 best friends couldn't stop him if we tried to tackle him. And your 20 best friends might not be able to stop him either. Now, let me just say this. Let's say you are the toughest football player alive. Then obviously I'm not talking to you because you could stop him. I understand that. But most of you people I'm talking to are regular people, and you couldn't stop Fridge in 1,000 years until his brain damage kicked in, and then you could stop him because he can stop himself. He can barely walk out of his car. He can barely walk out of his car. We got to stop this. For what? A short career? I think he made a world championship touchdown. They took this linesman, and they put him in the backfield for one play, and he went over, and it was phenomenal. So they did it again and again. It was great entertainment, but nothing's bringing his brain back. Nothing bringing his discipline back, because now he can't control what he eats because he's consumed with food. He's ruining his sugar count, and he's falling apart piece by piece. And I wish I could save him, and that's why I'm doing this show. And I'm looking to save you 4-year-old and 5-year-old and 10-year-old and 12-year-old and 14-year-old kids. Now, what's with the sexism here? Remember I told you they used to throw the virgin women into the volcano to die and to, you know, as some sort of thing? All right? Well, what's with the sexism? It's only the boys they send out to crack into pieces and to damage their brains. It's not the girls. Now, there's some